difficult one or maybe an irrelevant one. We'll see. Only time will tell. Today, bright and early, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, we are going to be discussing four-handed poker ranges and various strategic adjustments you should make because of that. Before we get started, though, you can download the ranges. I made them for you, made them available. Go to pages.pokercoaching.com/formax. As you see, here's the URL right down here. I'll give you all a few minutes to go and get those. You'll have to enter your email address, and then I think you'll just have access. Maybe we email it to you. I'm not exactly sure the process. But go get the ranges because, while you can follow along here today, you might as well have the ranges for yourself. Louis Philippe said, good morning. Third place for $1,000 in an $11 tournament yesterday. Congrats. Nice score. Ooh, it's tough whenever you're playing those progressive bounty tournaments and you take third place because it means you missed out on a load of bounties. But, what can you do? Third place isn't so bad. Especially whenever it's for 100 buy-ins. 100 buy-ins is great. All right. So, I'll give you all a few more minutes to get your range charts downloaded. One thing worth mentioning, four-handed ranges in the cutoff, say you're in the cutoff playing four-handed, you should actually be a little bit looser than if you're playing four-handed at a six-handed table or at a nine-handed table. And that's because if you're playing nine-handed, when everyone folds to you in the cutoff, presumably the players in the earlier positions are not folding pocket aces and pocket kings and pocket queens and ace king and ace queen. That means they're more likely folding junky hands, right? So if they're more likely to fold junky hands, that means everybody yet to act is just a little bit more likely to have a slightly stronger range, which means, did I say it backwards already? Which means in turn, you need to raise a little bit tighter at a nine-handed table because the people yet to act probably have slightly stronger ranges. However, at a six-handed table or four-handed table, fewer people have folded junky hands before you, right? So that means you get to raise slightly looser. So that is definitely worth mentioning. How many tournaments per day do you think a pro needs to play to make up for variance? Well, per day is not really what you want to be asking yourself because obviously what is a day, right? A day could be a 4-hour session or a day could be a 16-hour session, right? When I sit down to play online tournaments on Sunday, it's the only day I play now, I'm usually playing something like 40 or 50 games and I'm still having tons of variance. So take that for what it's worth. Also depends on the buy-in level, right? And the spread of buy-ins. For example, I've been playing anywhere between $50 games and $2,500 games. Obviously, the $2,500 games and the $600 games and the $1,000 games make way more of a difference to the bottom line than the $50 games, right? And there just aren't enough high-stakes games to go around. All right, let's see. In Miami, it's gorgeous. Yeah, well, hopefully we get back there at some point. You're beginning the 30-day challenge. Better late than never. Yeah, we have a 30-day challenge going on right now. You can go right up here, pokercoaching.com/tournament challenge. You can sign up to Poker Coaching Premium for completely free, I think, for like a week. Then we'll give you half off the first month. And you can get access to the 30-day tournament challenge. The best way to get good at something is to go deep, study it, and really make a point to be dedicated to what you are learning. We discussed this in the last episode of Little Coffee. Commit or quit, right? Great way to commit is to do it frequently and often. And studying poker is a great thing to commit to because it will result in you getting very good at poker. All right. You have a day off. You can watch before your online session. Great. How do you counter loose passive styles in cash games? Just value bet a lot. If your opponents are really loose and they call with all sorts of garbage and they do a whole lot of checking, then value bet a lot. All right. I presume all of you have your range charts already. If you don't worry. We'll leave the URL up. Okay, if you go to the range charts, I believe this is what you see. Mine may be a tiny bit different. This may be an older document I'm working off of than you all. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, let's discuss what you're going to have in front of you. Again, go to pages.pokercoaching.com/formax to get these range charts for you. Okay, so these range charts we're giving you are implementable GTO ranges. Okay? Implementable GTO ranges. That's because they are close to the game theory optimal range without splitting the way you play each hand. For example, there'll be many instances where the GTO range suggests playing a specific hand some portion of the time, like 33%, And in the implementable chart, if 3 hands, like Queen 6, Queen 5, and Queen 4, each get played 33%, we adjust that to make 1 hand played and the other 2 folded. This will make the strategy a whole lot easier to use at the table in exchange for losing a teensy tiny bit of equity. It essentially doesn't matter. It's negligible. So let me show you what I mean. Take a look at this image right here. This is a range chart for some spot. I don't even know what spot it is. But in this scenario, this is what we're supposed to raise with from some position. This is what Pile Solver will give you, or Monker Solver will give you if you go to play. So you see we have some of these hands that have a 1, the hands that are bright yellow. These hands are played 100% of time. This is some raising range from some position. So we're raising these hands in yellow 100% of the time. Then you have some hands like Ace Queen offsuit, you're raising 95% of the time. King Queen offsuit, 85% of the time. Ace Jack offsuit, 40% of the time. King Jack offsuit, 10% of the time. So how are us humans supposed to account for the fact that you're supposed to only play these hands very, very rarely? Well, you can do all sorts of things that make it difficult to actually apply. Like you can have a timer on your computer that you know, all right, King Jack offsuit in this exact spot I'm supposed to play it 10% of the time because, you've memorized a million of these charts, which, again, us humans aren't going to do. But if you memorize all these charts, then you can say, all right, if the timer on my second hand is between 0 and 6, I play this hand. If it's higher than 6, I don't play it. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that's going to be very difficult to implement. So what we do, let's take a look at these hands, right? You see King Jack offsuit's played 10% of the time. What we're going to do is we're going to play Ace Queen offsuit and King Queen offsuit 100% of the time, and that's basically going to account for that. So King Jack offsuit, we're just going to fold every time. King Queen and Ace Queen, we're going to play every time. Now we have a 55 and a 40, so Jack 9 suited and 10 9 suited. Maybe we just play Jack 9 suited every time, or just play 10 9 suited every time. You see pocket 7s we play 70, pocket 6s we play 50. Maybe we take like this Ace 4 suited and never play it, and then we play pocket 6s every time. We don't play 6 5 suited, don't play pocket 5s. You see Ace Jack offsuit, King 9 suited, Ace 8 suited. Maybe we just always play Ace Jack offsuit and ignore these 2. Something like that. That's roughly how you go about making these implementable enough. Again, it's not perfect. If your opponents know exactly the adjustments you've made, they can do a little bit better than the GTO strategy against you. But the thing is they don't really know what you're doing, and they're not going to be able to adjust appropriately because no one knows that you're playing the Ace Jack offsuit every time, but not the King 9 suited or whatever. Okay? So that's what we mean by implementable charts. Post-flop, we also try to do this over at pokercoaching.com. Let me see if I can make this bigger. See post-flop strategy here? This is what Pile Solver will give you for post-flop strategy, and it's a bit of a mess. Because you see, you're supposed to play, each color is a way you're supposed to play your hand. For example, pocket aces here, you're supposed to use a big bet 54% of the time, medium bet 31% of the time, and check 15% of the time. That is difficult to actually do in-game. So, we've devised a strategy that will let you use an implementable strategy. It's not going to be perfect, again, it's going to be slightly off GTO, but you can figure out the right play when you're playing, and you don't have to go through and memorize 100,000 charts. I've been working on my tournament course, and I've been going through a lot of other people's content to see what all they are teaching, make sure I'm not missing anything, right? It turns out most of the other courses out there are basically telling you, get Pile Solver, run 10,000 scenarios, and memorize them. I hate to break it to you, but that is not how you get good at poker. And it's actually kind of disappointing that people are paying $1,500 or $2,000 for courses that basically tell them, download a solver and run it a million times and memorize it. But that is what a lot of people think you have to do, but it actually isn't. Now, again, I'm not going to teach you to be the number one poker player in the world. Number one poker player in the world probably is actually memorizing 10,000 of these charts. But the vast majority of people who are crushing poker aren't actually going through memorizing these charts. They're learning the principles that come from these charts. Like, for example, in this scenario, you see jacks and tens are checked every time, right? There's some reason that's happening. So realize that you can learn the principles that come from these charts without actually having to memorize the charts, and then you'll be pretty close to right the majority of the time. All right. So anyway, let's see. These charts I'm about to show you, again, get them at pokercoaching.com/4max. They assume the action is folded to you unless it's otherwise stated. If there are razors or limpers in front of you, the charts no longer apply because the situation is different, right? These charts assume your opponents play the GTO strategy, which will rarely be the case. This is very important right here. These charts assume your opponents play well. Now, you can make charts that presume your opponents make some sort of blunders. The thing is, your opponents can make blunders in all sorts of ways. So you're going to have to use a little bit of logic to exploit whatever your opponents do wrong. Someone just asked, what happens if your opponents are loose and passive and call every raise? Well, stop bluffing. Like, duh, come on, right? If they're going to call you every time, only value bet. Life's easy. So So you want to make sure you are taking that into account, right? So if your opponents do play too tightly or too loosely, you should make significant adjustments. Okay, these charts are designed for cash games because that is what most poker, when we go back, I think is probably going to be. And it seems like those are very clearly being defined as four-handed games. I just saw a photo from the Bicycle Casino, and they have a whole bunch of four-handed poker games set up. And that's important to realize that that is probably what we're going to be doing in the near future. I hear my baby screaming, so I'm going to go check on my baby. 1 second, everyone. Sorry. You know how this goes. Thomas had his leg stuck in his crib, as if he tried to jump out of it, but he forgot that there were rails there. Okay, so these charts assume no ante, so these are not for tournaments, and they assume 5% rake capped at 1.5 big blinds, which is typical for most 2-5 no-limit games. At lower stakes, rake is higher, which means you should probably play a little bit tighter. If you're playing a tournament with no rake, because you already paid the rake at the start of the tournament, if there's no rake in your games, then you should be playing a little bit looser. If there's an ante in play, you should be playing a little bit looser, especially from the big blind. Okay? So for bet sizing, these charts assume a 2.5 big blind raise first in, RFI, from in position, and a 3 big blind raise from the small blind. In position should be 3 betting to 8.5 big blinds, out of position to 10 big blinds. 4 bets are all to 25 big blinds, and 5 bets are all in. Okay? When the big blind faces a small blind limp, they should raise to 3.5 big blinds, and then when big blind faces a 3x raise, they should 3 bet to 9. These charts are for 100 big blinds deep. Don't know if that's clearly listed. I'll make sure that is done, because that is how most cash games start. If you get deeper, well, things should change. Some of you are saying that the image is a little bit blurry on Twitch. Maybe you go to poker or youtube.com/poker coaching. I hear it's a little bit better there. All right. Let's take a look at what we have here. Cutoff strategy. I'm going to do my best to zoom in, but I don't know if this is going to work so well. So here we have the cutoff strategy. This is what you should raise if everyone folds to you in the cutoff, to 2.5 big blinds. Okay? We're raising with all the pairs, suited aces, ace-8 offsuit and better, king-3 suited and better. You see, there's just a good straight linear range. Nothing too fancy about this. Okay? You'll find that this is what you should usually raise from the cutoff, roughly. Next, what happens when the button 3-bets you? Remember, the button's going to 3-bet to about 7 or 8 big blinds. We are going to then 4-bet with pocket 10s and better, an ace-king for value, and then we're going to be 4-betting with queens, jacks, king-jack suited, king-10 suited, and ace-10 suited as a bluff. Okay? Some players, you may find you have to call off with ace-queen if you do 4-bet it. That said, if that's the case, you probably would rather call it instead. The calling hands are all these hands in blue that flop really well. Notice the calling range is very, very strong, right? And then we're folding out a lot of our range in this scenario because we are out of position and, button 3-betting range should be reasonable. You certainly could defend a little bit looser if you felt inclined. I don't see a problem defending looser against most people, really. And if you are going to defend looser, what I would do is I would call king-jack suited, ace-10 suited, king-10 suited, and then 3-bet instead something like ace-9 suited, king-9 suited, queen-9 suited. Roughly. Something like that I think would be fine. Again, if the 3-bet size was smaller, remember the 3-bet size in this scenario assumes an 8.5 3-bet. So if it went 2.5 then 8.5, you see you should play kind of tight. But if it goes 2.5, 6.5, well, then now you can defend way wider, and you should be defending way wider, right? So you have to make sure you're using the proper charts for exactly what you're looking at, right? As your opponents play differently, you should in turn play differently. So that's what we're doing in this scenario. Let's look at cutoff versus small blind 3-bet. So here we raise, opponent 3-bets us in the small blind. As you see, we're 3-betting jacks and better for value and ace-king suited. We're 3-betting ace-jack offsuit, ace-9 suited as a bluff. People always ask, well, which ones are you folding if they re-raise you? Well, obviously the bad ones, right? It's always pretty clear. The hands up top are good. You're 4-betting those for value. The hands over here are not good. You're 4-betting those as a bluff. All right, then we're calling all these otherwise good hands, and we are folding all the hands near the bottom of the range. You may say, fold king-queen offsuit to a 3-bet? Well, again, it went 2.5 and then 10. Is it 10 or 9? What are we going to here? Yeah, 10. So if the opponent's going to 10, you should play pretty tightly. Again, if there's no rake in the game, you should defend a little bit wider. If you're playing with an ante in play, you should defend a little bit wider because there's more money in the pot. If the rake is bigger, you should defend even tighter than this because they're raking way more of the money, right? So as you see, this is what we're doing here. Not a whole lot of 4-betting, though. I think a lot of people think they're supposed to be 4-betting a ton, but really you're just 4-betting the absolute best hands that can get it all in, and then a few bluffs. Same story against big blind, right? In this situation, we are just 4-betting the absolute nuts. Here, the big blind really shouldn't be 3-betting all that often, which is why we are in turn 4-betting very rarely. Again, using ace-jack offsuit, ace-3 suited as bluffs, getting it in with the other hands, and another reasonably wide calling range. We have to assume people playing in the casinos early on will be a little bit more loose and aggressive because the nits will stay home. Well, maybe, we'll see. Some people are just going to want to gamble. And if that's the case, you need to presume they're going to be 3-betting you a little bit too often. If that's the case, you should adjust, right? We're going to be discussing adjustments soon. All right, here we have button raise first in, a little bit looser. You're going to find you get to play about 45-ish% of hands or so. Why are we 4-bet bluffing with ace-3 suited instead of ace-5 suited? You was always told ace-5 suited is better to bluff. Why are we not in 1080? I don't know. How do I make it in 1080? Someone tell me how to do that. Maybe we can do it. Why are we not 4-betting this hand? Because this is what the solver says to do. I know it's not a great answer, but solver suggests using this hand as a bluff. Why? I don't know. Solver does a lot of convoluted things. And again, this is probably this is definitely an implementable spot, I can already tell you, where it's probably calling some and 4-betting some with all of these hands. Probably like, I don't know, 10% of the time each. To the point that it just doesn't matter what you do. And really, you have to realize when you 4-bet here, we're 4-betting as a blocker. The difference between ace-5 and ace-3 is very, very negligible. Ziv, welcome. New premium member from Israel. Hello, hello. Greetings from New Zealand. Everyone's from everywhere. Hello, hello, hello. All right. But again, double cheeseburger. Did you not watch earlier where I said these were implementable strategies? As you see here, if we use, let's say, this chart, look, it's playing ace-4 suited sometimes, ace-5 suited sometimes. It's playing 10-9 suited sometimes, jack-9 suited sometimes. We've made these implementable, which means you're only playing one of these when it's 55-40. Just pick one and do it 100%. All right. So anyway, button versus cutoff raise. This is when you're on the button and the cutoff raises you. Here's what we should be doing. Again, you have to use a little bit of logic to figure out which ones you're bluffing, but you're 3-betting 9s and better for value, ace-queen and better and king, ace-queen suited, ace-king for value. King-queen suited, if we 3-bet this and get 4-bet, we're probably calling some portion of the time. Actually, let's take a look at what the opponent's doing. Cutoff versus button 3-bet. Yeah, you probably have to stick around with stuff like king-queen suited. Queen-jack suited probably folds, though. Ace-10 offsuit's obviously a bluff. These offsuit hands are obviously bluffs. All these hands over here are obviously bluffs. So one thing you're going to find is that in position, you are 3-betting very, 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 very polarized. It's very important to be polarized when you're 3-betting in position. Out of position, sometimes that changes, but definitely from in position. Next, here we have button versus small blind 3-bet. As you see, small 4-betting strategy again, because small blind, probably is going to be decently strong. Same thing against big blind. Both players should be decently strong. You mentioned earlier you think the solver likes ace-5 suited. It definitely likes king-5 suited. If you look at the solver, for some reason that king-5 suited sticks out like a sore thumb all the time. Again, for everyone who's late, go download the charts and read the directions, please. Please read the directions. The directions are very important. I already sat here and read them out to you, but these are for specifically games where you're playing 100 big blinds deep, games where there is a 1.5 big blind rake, 5% rake capped at 1.5 big blinds, and no ante in play. That is what these charts are for. These charts are also specifically for when the action is folded to you. If there are limpers, the action was not folded to you. There are limpers. So that's a different scenario. And you're going to find that there is no optimal limping strategy. So if there is no optimal limping strategy, then you cannot have game theory optimal charts for limpers because no one should ever limp. So now you have to exploit whatever your opponent's doing wrong. If they're limping with a lot of garbage, obviously just raise them wide for value, depending on how they're going to play. If they're going to call every time, raise for value. If they're going to fold every time, raise with all sorts of stuff as a bluff, right? Please, please, please read the directions. When folded to means exactly they folded to you. All right, so you see both these situations when you are on the button versus the big blind, you're defending pretty similarly. It's actually almost exactly the same. And that's just because we are facing the rather big 3-bet size. Again, the 3-bet size is to 10 big blinds from out of position. So big 3-bet size. All right, small blind. In this situation, you see we have a really convoluted strategy. Small blind, raise first hand. So here we are raising the hands in red and we're limping the hands in blue. The purpose of this is to allow us to play a wide range. If you only raise your best hands and only limp your marginal and garbage hands, then you're not going to be able to play nearly as many hands. But if you instead mix it up like this, when you limp, your opponent doesn't know if you have a good hand that's going to limp call or limp re-raise, or if you have a bad hand that's going to limp and fold, which makes it to where they just can't raise you blindly. So, as you see here, we're using this strategy. Here we have small blind versus cutoff. We're just 3-betting very linear. Small blind versus button, 3-betting very linear. Then we have small blind versus cutoff, raise, and button 3-bet. You see we are 4-betting with just the absolute best hands. 4-betting some of these as bluffs. Ace-jack suited, king-jack suited, king-queen suited, ace-queen offsuit to fold to a jam. And then the rest will call it off against the jam. Okay? Again, notice here, small blind versus cutoff, small blind versus button. There is no flat calling range. There is no flat calling range. That means you are 3-betting literally every hand you play from the small blind. Okay? Any tips on how to beat the rake in small stakes games? Yeah, play the optimal strategy. Remember, these charts here assume that you're playing a standard-ish 2-5 no-limit game with a regular rake. As the rake is higher, you should just play tighter. Small blind strategy doesn't seem very implementable. There are significant EV loss. Is there significant EV loss compared to only an open raise strategy? Oh yeah, if you only raise or fold from the small blind, you're just going to be lighting your money on fire. Absolutely lighting your money on fire. You should definitely have a limping range. You must have a limping range from the small blind. Unless, of course, your opponent's really bad. Again, if your opponent's really bad, if your opponent's going to fold every time you raise, unless they have the nuts, then obviously just raise a ton. The small blind is a spot where you should be adjusting the most because you're against exactly one player. As you're against fewer and fewer players, you should be adjusting more and more depending on whatever they do wrong. But no, this actually is relatively implementable, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious. Limp the absolute best, raise slightly worse, limp next, 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 raise slightly worse. It goes right down the list. And then you see, notice how this breaks down. It's pretty obvious how this breaks down in this scenario. You see, limp versus big blind raise, you're re-raising aces, ace-king, ace-queen suited, ace-jack suited, king-queen suited, 10s and 9s for value. And you're raising these hands, king-9 suited, queen-9 suited, jack-9 suited, ace-10 offsuit, ace-9 offsuit as a bluff. Okay? Then you're limping and then calling the raise with all these hands that flop pretty well, right? That makes logical sense. Then you're limping and folding with all these hands that don't flop very well. You may say limp, fold, ace-3 offsuit. Again, that's because of the rake, right? Can you all see this? Here we go. Small blind rate when you raise versus a 3-bet, as you see, you're 4-betting your best hands plus that magical king-5 suited bluff, king-jack offsuit bluff. You're calling with these hands in blue, which are all very strong, and you're folding these hands, which are not quite as good, right? It's pretty logical. They're going to have lower rake to attract more players. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We'll see. Some places are. Most casinos, if you're playing shorthanded, they give you half rake. But notice, that doesn't really help the casino because they're dealing roughly the same number of hands, or 1.5 times as many hands. So casinos are going to be making less money. All right, here we have big blind strategy. Big blind versus cutoff. We are 3-betting these hands in red, calling all these hands in blue. Very, very wide calling range. You may say, notice that you're not defending anywhere nearly as wide as you would in a tournament. And that's because in a tournament, you're facing smaller raises and there's no rake. So you see in a tournament, you may get to play like, say you're playing 15 big blinds deep, you get to play like 90% of hands from the big blind. Here you only get to play about 45% of hands. Okay? Big blind versus button. You see a different composition of hands that you are 3-betting, which is kind of interesting. Also, you're playing more hands, so that's pretty neat. Here we have big blind versus small blind limp. Remember, when small blind limps, they should be very, well, they're going to have a mix, which is tough to play against. But you're usually just going to want to raise your best hands plus some bluffs. It's pretty obvious which ones the bluffs are, right? All these ones down here and down here, these are all bluffs. You're raising very polarized. You're going to find in position you want to be raising polarized. Big blind versus small blind raise, same story. You want to be very polarized when you're raising, which makes logical sense. And then we have spots where you get to 4-bet. So big blind versus cutoff raise, button 3-bet, just super nitty. Big blind versus button raise, small blind 3-bet, a little bit wider, but still very nitty. So when it goes raise 3-bet, you need to be very tight. As you see, there is no calling range when it goes raise 3-bet. You instead 4-bet or fold everything. Okay? So look, those are the implementable game theory optimal charts. The question now becomes, how should you change your strategy to account for what your opponents are doing wrong? And that's very, very important to ask yourself, because a lot of the time, you should not be blindly following the generic game theory optimal charts. So if your opponents are raising too wide, you want to ask, how will they reply to additional aggression? Will they be loose or will they be tight to additional aggression? Some people will be very loose and they'll just 4-bet you every time because they're lunatics. They think, okay, 6-handed, I need to be 4-betting a ton. James is outside. Other people will raise very wide and then assume that if you 3-bet, they only should call with the absolute best hands. So you want to make sure that you are accounting for whatever your opponent's doing correctly, because some people can play the exact same amount of hands pre-flop. They can raise, let's say, 60% of hands from the cutoff, which is way too wide, but some of them will 4-bet a ton, and some of them will fold a ton. And your strategy depends a lot on which one of those they're going to do. So you need to get in there and you need to experiment. Whenever you're playing short-handed poker, you want to see what you can get away with. Remember, 9-handed poker, you really don't get to mess around all that much just because someone's going to have something at the table a lot of the time. But at 4-handed poker, quite often, no one has anything. And if your opponents will let you win every pot where they don't have anything good, then it's really easy to play against them, right? You can just raise 3-bet, 4-bet, whatever. Just apply a lot of aggression and put them in bad spots. Now, obviously, if a tight player who only plays good hands 3-bets you or 4-bets you, that's your sign to get out of the way. Don't be the fish who really tries to win every single pot. That is a big, big, big mistake. So is 4-hander hyper exploitative? You know, that made me actually think back to a tournament that I won a while back on PokerStars. I have it recorded. If you're a Poker Coaching Premium member, what's it called? I don't know. I'll try to find it on the side here. Let me go to my website. But yeah, so you always want to ask, what are the opponents doing incorrectly? Do we study with solvers? Of course we do. That said, we try to make these things implementable for you. It's very important to make sure that you use implementable strategies, which, you know, you can't really get all that more implementable than a just straight up chart for you to look at and for you to copy. Okay? Which is what we have here for you. It's very, very important to find ways to just very easily and simply play well. And that's what we have. Trying to find this course that I have playing 4-handed tournaments, which actually, you know, somehow may become pretty timely. Who knows how I played back then? I'm sure I was an absolute lunatic. There's so many courses on poker coaching. Goodness gracious. Too many courses, everyone. Sorry. Let's see. It's somewhere in here. It's one of these about exploit. Let me just look up exploit. I'm sure that'll come up. Obviously it doesn't. Louis Fleet probably knows which one it is. Anyway, it's somewhere in there. If not, send us an email. We'll find it. Whatever. Okay. How's quarantine poker gone for you? It's been fine. Did I see the video that the shill Boyski said, yeah, shills are going to shill. It's important to realize that if someone's paying you to promote them, they are going to do things like that to try to earn their keep. Funny enough, so Boyski was paid, I was told $100 to make that video to try to demean me, because the same rakeback company that paid him $100 came to me and said, hey, Jonathan, can we pay you $100 to make a video of you trying to tear down Boyski using these points? They were trying to cause drama, and they were trying to stir the pot, and obviously that's asinine. Jonathan Little is certainly not going to make a video about someone he's never interacted with in his whole life trying to tear a random person down for $100. I mean, how big of a loser do you have to be to do this? And hate to break it to you all, we're not shilling for sites that are operating illegally, and we're also certainly not going to be making videos talking trash about people who we don't even know. That would be ridiculous. So, yeah. Someone told me I look like Murr from Impractical Jokers. No, I've not been told that. My parents do love that show, though. You loved the Faraz Jaka stream yesterday. Great, I'm glad to hear it. Yesterday, Faraz Jaka live streamed for Poker Coaching Premium members. We're trying to do more things to just continuously add value to poker coaching, and that's fun. Would this be implementable to cash games or tournaments or even sit-and-goes? If not, what adjustments should you be making? Well, first off, again, Tim, in tournaments, there is no rake once you're playing, so you should be able to play a little bit wider. However, especially in tournaments, especially in sit-and-goes, what is this on the screen? Especially in sit-and-goes, you should, you have to worry about the payout implications, right? Also, same thing in tournaments. So no, you should not be using these ranges in situations where there are payout implications. This presumes that there are no payout implications. Oh, you all chat. You're all fun. Let's see. Are you talking about 6max or 4max because live games are coming back? Yeah, that's it. I was inspired. Look, I did not think four-handed charts were going to be a thing. I really didn't. I didn't think four-handed games were going to be a thing. Because, well, casinos are presumably not going to be able to make as much money off of them, and I know a lot of the nitty players, as you all said, really don't want to be playing four-handed because they want to play with lots of players at the table so they can sit there and be nitty. But I've seen some of the casinos opening four-handed. I see the Bicycle Casino, a big casino in Los Angeles, opening four-handed soon, and that's like, if that's what we're doing, I guess we might as well go ahead and get ready for it. So here we are. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. You all asked me about four-handed games. Where can you get all these charts? Go to pokercoaching.com in the tool section. We have a lot of charts available in the tool section. What are the common mistakes other small stakes players make four-handed? Well, a lot of them are either going to be way too loose or way too tight, right off the bat. What are some ways to discover their leaks? Look at the frequency of them making various plays, right? It's very important to realize that even if you don't get to see the showdown, you will get to see the frequency at which your opponents are raising, the frequency at which they are three-betting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And some people are going to rarely put money in the pot. Against those players, you should probably assume they just have good hands. And other players are going to assume that it's short-handed, therefore they're supposed to go nuts. And for that reason, you can pay attention. If someone's raising and three-betting and four-betting every hand, obviously they're lunatics. If they're not playing any pots, or they seem like really nervous and excited when they three-bet for the first time in, 50 hands, probably have the nuts, right? Apparently no one likes this video today is what Craig's saying. Well, if you all don't like this content, that's fine. This kind of stuff takes a ton of time to make, and if you don't like it, I won't do it again. But click like, click subscribe. I see we have a few hundred people here, so we need at least a few hundred likes today. One thing you will encounter when you're playing short-handed play is that inevitably, especially if your opponents are in there battling, you are going to experience bigger swings on a regular basis to your bankroll. And that's because inevitably, pre-flop and or post-flop, you're just going to be getting it in more often. I do want to make it clear here that, like, take a look at button against small blind 3-bet. You see, you really shouldn't be getting it in all that often. You see this is with a whopping, 2.9% of hands you're 3-betting? I'm sorry, you're 4-betting? So you're only 4-betting 2.9% of hands. You're actually only getting it in with aces, kings, queens, and ace-king. So I think a lot of people think you should be ramming and jamming it more often, but you know, you really shouldn't be ramming and jamming it all that often. And you are going to realize that sometimes you are going to get your queens and run it to their aces, and you're just going to do that 4 or 5 times in a session, and that's going to result in you losing, you know, 4, 5, 6 buy-ins over the course of an 8-hour session sometimes when you run poorly. So definitely recognize that that is the case. Trying to read all of your chat. It looks like one of them just disappeared. B Purple, who was viewing on Twitch, came to YouTube to press like. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, you can also click follow, I think, and it'll tell you whenever we go live. You're not sure how we make these charts exactly. Is it the bunching effect taken into account by the solver? Yeah, this is with Munker Solver. And also, bunching effect doesn't really matter all that much when you're playing deep stacked. It matters way more when you're shallow stacked. Because, like, say I raise the button, playing 100 big blinds deep, and the opponent has ace-9 offsuit. It's just, like, not that big of a deal, right? But if I jam the button for 15 big blinds, the opponent has ace-9 offsuit, they're going to call my all-in, and I'm going to be in bad shape. So bunching effect doesn't really matter all that much, but Munker Solver does take this into account. Do you have anywhere the odds required to call a 3-bet with suited connectors, suited pairs, etc.? You often get 3-bet and find this difficult to call. Well, you're really concerned with implied odds. Usually with implied odds, you want to be getting about 10-to-1 implied odds with your pairs and about 20-to-1 implied odds with suited aces and suited connectors. Decent gappers count as suited connectors. So roughly that, assuming the hand cannot win on its own merit. Now, a hand like pocket eights doesn't need the full 10-to-1 because sometimes pocket eights is just going to be good enough on the flop. And, you know, queen jack suited does not need the full 20-to-1 because it's going to do pretty well. But as you see here, in this situation, say cutoff raises small blind 3-bets, we have to put in 7 to potentially win, 20 in the pot, give or take? Yeah, we have to put in 7 to win about 20. And then we can win an additional 90 from our opponent, which gives us about 14-to-1 implied odds, something like that. So you see, we still get to call with some suited connectors that are very good, but we don't get to call with the weaker ones. Same thing with the suited aces, right? We get to call with the big suited aces and these down here that are the better of the bad ones. And we get to call with all the pairs because we're getting 14-to-1. You see pocket twos folds. Like if you told me you wanted to call pocket twos, it's probably fine. How deep are stacks here? 100 big blinds. And four-handed, you should limp more. I do not think you need to open limp. As you see, the solver agrees. There is no open limping strategy. What about opening sizes? Do you think that will vary in four-handed play? Well, certainly some people are going to use much bigger sizes with their whole range. Like some people in live poker just always make it 4 or 5 big blinds pre-flop. They think that that's what they're supposed to do. The solver recommends, as we see here in the directions of this, make sure you go and download this. This is completely free for all of you. Go to pages.pokercoaching.com/4max. Here we have the sizings. These charts assume the opponent is playing the game theory optimal strategy, which obviously they're not, but it's a good starting point. So 2.5 big blind first raise, in position 3 bets to 8.5, out of position 3 bets to 10. All 4 bets are to 23, and all 5 bets are all in. Okay? So that's what we're doing in this scenario. This GTO stuff really annoys you. You play on sites with no heads-up software, and you can change your nickname each time. Okay, good. I mean, I don't know. Do whatever you want, right? I personally enjoy having more information. More information leads to higher win rates for people who know how to synthesize and use the information. I know that I have a way higher win rate on sites where I get to use heads-up display because, well, I use the heads-up display better than most people, right? And I'm certainly not even all that great at it. But more information is good for the better players. Less information is bad for the better players. So keep that in mind. That said, the way you actually beat the games with a lack of information is to play perfect GTO because you actually don't have good information on your opponents. So funny enough, the sites with heads-up displays actually highly reward the exploitative players. So if you think of yourself as a good live poker player, you would probably rather have more information because that's going to allow you to adjust and exploit your opponents better. I think I'm actually very good at exploiting and taking advantage of whatever the opponents do wrong. But I am not the absolute most fundamentally sound poker player in the world. I do my best and I study hard, but I'm not the best. I'm not spending all day, every day grinding solvers. And I recognize this, right? But to succeed on the sites that have no additional information, you either need to play very few tables, which you're not going to make any money playing very few tables, just because you're not putting in volume, or you have to play really good, strong GTO poker, which, you know, I'm good at, but I'm certainly not the best at. In super small field tournaments, what's my opinion on chopping up the prize money? Actually, Google Jonathan Little, let's not make a deal. Let's see. Any plans to stream my live Sunday sessions? No, because I have to deal with my kids sometimes, and it's hectic and it's loud. But I did record one of them recently. It actually just went up in the courses section, or in the classes section. Where'd it go up? Let me see if I can find this. I believe it went up in the classes section. Maybe it's in courses. I don't know. It's somewhere in here. Poker coaching's full of stuff. I streamed, or I recorded a... Here it is. Play and explain full Sunday tournament schedule. I did this about a month ago. I took a second and a third, which managed to make up for the losses I've lost in a $2,500 tournament 3 times that day. But yeah, I played for 12, 13, 14 hours, something like that. So 14 hours of me playing online, talking about my thought process the whole time. To be fair, I wasn't like... I was grinding hard. We were like 18 tabling or something. Let's see, it's 15 parts long. Each part's an hour or so. So 15-hour long session of me sitting there grinding it out. You get sick of answering the same questions over and over again. Depends on what they are. Some of them are fun, some of them are not fun. What are my thoughts on ACR bomb pots? I don't know. I'm not playing cash games. Listen, right now, I think playing cash games online is probably not the best use of your time. Right now, cash game rake is quite high. Tournament rake is quite low. Also, tournaments are very soft, and cash games are not so much. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a tournament player, because I play cash games as well. But from everything I hear from other people, basically all the backing sites have had their people not playing tournaments, or not playing cash games anymore. They're all playing tournaments now. And that's because the games are absurdly soft. So I would tell you to like not even play cash games at the moment, assuming you care about making money. How do you adjust to a site with no HUD? Like I said, play fewer tables, or so you can pay attention on everything that's happening and taking good notes, or just play really good, strong, fundamentally sound poker. Is there still more content to come? Yes. Is there a point that everything will be covered? No. Turns out poker's a big game. Ace Jack on the button. Under the gun +1 raises to 2 big blinds. Folds to you. You call. Flop comes Ace 7-5. He bets. You call. Oh, you raise. Don't raise. I would just call. Anyway, you raise. He calls. Turns an 8. Check, check. Rivers a queen. He jams for 26 big blinds. I wouldn't even raise the flop here. I would just call, call, call. In this scenario, as it runs out, it's probably a call. Lots of draws missed. But again, it's a terrible spot to be in. Obviously, a very exploitative spot too. Like, these are not really good questions because if the opponent's a nit, obviously fold. If the opponent's a maniac, obviously call. If the opponent's fundamentally sound, it's roughly going to be break even either way. What's a program to track all your hands? Hold'em Manager. You are working on a video with you playing on TV? I do not know what that means. Did I just say 18 tabling? Yes, we said 18 tabling. Let's see. I actually don't know how many tables we had at this point. Let me see if I can load this up. 1, 2, 3.
All right. 4, so it looks like we don't really have any more games to play.
9, 10, 11. Only 11 right now.
We could play this
5 hours in. Let's see if we go back to the beginning. Nice full day. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right,
5, 6,
we are
7,
back.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12.
We have now $2,600 tournament up here.
Because I knew I was going to be recording it.
$1 million
Normally more,
guaranteed
though.
day 1. So I guess we're playing a multi-day tournament.
Anyway, that's what that looks like roughly.
Here.
Oh, let's see. Also, part 1's available for everyone, by the way. If you just go to pokercoaching.com and sign up for a free membership, you can watch part 1. What about cash on the regulated site? Same story. Rake is pretty high on those. Would Modern Poker Theory be a good place to start? Yeah, definitely. You deal with volatility in tournaments, so you need more volume. Yeah, you need to put in volume if you want to have good success in anything, especially big field tournaments. Webinars on specifically note-taking. That's a good idea. Where do you find these charts? On the tools section of pokercoaching.com. Sign into pokercoaching.com. Go right over here to tools. And here they all are. 4 max charts, 75 big blind charts for tournaments, 15 big blind charts for tournaments, push fold charts, push fold app, range analyzer, progressive knockout calculator, all of this for poker coaching members. You're having a hard time on 2 no limit. You have good stats like 17, 21, 10. You're probably paying people off too often or perhaps not enough on the river. Like when you have decent pre-flop stats, which you're seeing fine, usually you're doing something bad on the turn or the river, or maybe you're just like check folding way too often from the big blind or something like that. You want to look for spots where you're losing a lot. Definitely look at your profit loss by position. That'll be very beneficial. Do you know anything about PokerStars Pennsylvania? I do not. Which one's better, Hold'em Manager 3 or Poker Tracker? I mean, I've always just used Hold'em Manager. I don't know if it's better or worse than Poker Tracker. You play 95% cash games with 30% rake back. I mean, look, if you're playing and you're winning and you're happy with your win rate, keep doing what you're doing, right? But if you're playing and you see that the rake is difficult to beat, then, or if you see that you're just having a hard time winning, you should probably look to change something. And right now, I know for a fact that the tournaments are relatively soft. So, that said, I mean, tournaments don't fit well for everyone's life, right? I understand that is definitely the case. Can a recreational player grind it out from the small stakes playing online tournaments? Yes, of course they can. Just got to play a lot of tournaments. That's really it. Play a lot of games in a game where you have an edge. Mark, for Hold'em Manager 3, go to their website. I think they have various tutorials there. Also, just search on YouTube. Do you like PioSolver? Do I like it? Yeah, I guess. You demand that I stream for you every day. Well, you can demand all you'd like. In terms of the solvers, I don't think I actually like the usage of any of them. I think they could all be way more user-friendly. But to be fair, the fact that they are not user-friendly makes them less accessible to most people. I personally, I mean, I have it on my computer and I use it, but I outsource a lot of the work that I do. For example, we had one of our poker coaching coaches get us about, 8,000 pre-flop GTO ranges we're going to be putting together in an app for all of you. We have a new app, by the way. Check out, search Poker Coaching in the App Store of iTunes or Android. And there we have push fold charts, push fold quiz. Those are free. Then you can also access your poker coaching quizzes currently. Classes are coming soon, and this pre-flop app with all of the straight GTO ranges will be out soon. I know some of you said that you like the implementable ranges because they're very easy. That said, others want the straight GTO solution. So there you go. How many tournaments is recommended for a month? Depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? The more the better, typically. Obviously, the more you play, to some extent, your win rate will start declining. Like imagine you played 20 tables all day, every day for 30 days a month. Clearly, the win rate is going to be rather low, right? For the 6-max charts, do we have anything regarding dealing with 3-bets from the cutoff or the button? You have to defend appropriately based on their bet sizing, right? To be fair, you can look at this, right? And you can kind of synthesize from this. Cutoff versus small blind 3-bet. You see, call, stuff that flops well, 4-bet, sporadically. But I mean, like I said, if your opponent's using smaller sizes, you should adjust this significantly, right? And I mean, in theory, we could go through and just give you the straight GTO ranges for everything, but you're going to find that really, like cutoff versus small blind, cutoff versus big blind, cutoff versus any 3-bet really should be adjusted a lot. We already discussed how you can adjust this, right? If you think the guy's 3-betting a lot, widen it. And you widen it by bumping down the 4-bets as a bluff, and also by widening the calling range a little bit. How many big blinds per hour should you be winning? Obviously, again, the more the better. Also, big blinds per 100 is not really all that relevant. You want to be looking at EV, big blind per 100. That is most relevant because he tells you if you're running hot or running poorly. It tells you what you would win if there was no variance. How many turns need to get an accurate idea of your ROI? Depends on how many people are in the tournament. If there's a lot of people in the tournament, like 1,000, you probably need like 5,000 games or something. But even then, your ROI changes based on the skill of your opponent. So if you're playing some small field tournaments against good people, plus a bunch of giant field tournaments, you have different ROIs in both games. And the idea of I have blank ROI in multi-table tournaments is not really... It's relevant, but it's not all that relevant. How do you adjust when playing PKO tournaments? Try to get a stack that can bust other people. What adjustments you make going from cash to tournaments? What are big mistakes cash game players make? Most cash game players just don't play shallow stacked well at all. You need to learn to play shallow stack poker very well. It requires different ranges, as you see here. 15 big blind ranges are different than 75 big blind ranges. Go in there, compare them, look at them. That's all there for you at poker coaching. And whenever I get this tournament class out, we actually go through and compare, or the tournament master class, it goes through and compares various stack depths and how you should play based on those. How do you find an extra edge if everyone's playing on the same info? Everyone's not playing on the same info, Jeremiah. That's the great thing about poker. Most people don't study at all. Only a tiny fraction of people actually study poker and care about getting good. Most people just want to gamble. Are Sit-and-Goes currently softer than cash online? Sit-and-Goes don't seem to run very often. GTO charts cost a ton. I'm trying to think how much we paid for our charts. I think we paid like $8,000 for them. Something like that. And that was just for like raw data. Then we had to go through and pay, many thousands of dollars to make an app. God, I think we've spent like $70,000 on this app so far. Just lighting it on fire. Literally torching the money for all of you. Hope you enjoy it. What percent of the population do you think uses a HUD? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I have to go now. My wife has to go to work soon. Hope you all have a good day. Hope you enjoy it. I'm going to go lick my wounds for the $70,000 app plus, $10,000 in range charts we're going to have spent by the time we're done with it. That'll be a lot of fun. The new app is great. I'm glad to hear it, Bella. Thank you for letting me know. Again, you can get the app we can just search poker coaching. I need to have links on the site. Yeah, so just search poker coaching in the iTunes or the Android's app store. No sign off from James? No, not today. He's having a fun time. Yeah, it turns out apps are expensive. Assuming you want to do it right. I mean, we had a push-pull chart before that cost us almost nothing. And it was fine, but it's certainly not good. And at this point, I want to make things that are very, very good. And I want to make things that I can continuously upgrade for forever. Right? Like I want to be able to add all the ranges to the app. And it turns out it's a lot of work to make things good and also upgradable. But that's fine. I don't mind. Problem is you have to keep spending money all the time to make it better. That's okay. That's okay. You all keep signing up to pokercoaching.com. What's the 30-day challenge? What's the punishment for not making the goal? There is no punishment. But what is it? Every day we give you something fun to do, to learn. Turns out if you're consistent and if you go through the content every day, you will learn to study. And learning to study and being consistent is how you get really good at anything. So again, there it is right over there. pokercoaching.com/tournament challenge. Check that out. Again, if you want the four-handed charts, pages.pokercoaching.com/formax. If you enjoyed this, please click like. Please click subscribe. I would appreciate it. It goes a long way to help YouTube know that you like my stuff, or Twitch, or wherever you're watching this. I'd appreciate it. When does the challenge start? It's started on Monday, but you can still get in it. Challenge started on Monday. However, you can start right now. pokercoaching.com/tournament challenge. Enjoy yourself, have fun, have a great weekend, make the most of it. If you play poker with the four-handed charts this weekend, let me know how it goes. Is it better to be GTO or exploitative? Obviously, learn how to play fundamentally sound and then adjust to whatever your opponents do wrong. If you don't know where to adjust from, you won't know where to adjust to. And when it becomes clear that your adjustments may not be good, you won't know where to adjust back to. So, learning just implementable strategies like we have. Follow the charts. Go through the homework at Poker Coaching where I explain how to play post-flop well. Do that and then adjust to whatever they do wrong. Have a great day and enjoy yourselves. How do you do the homework tab? Click on homework. Click on homework. It's very easy. Right here, I'll show you. Go to pokercoaching.com, log in, click on homework. It'll bring up the homework. Here is this month's homework question. study the question, read the question, go through here. Page is not sized properly for your stream. Then you go over here, click submit your answer. That'll take you over to the forum, log into the forum, and then follow the directions. Enjoy yourselves, have fun. I will see all of you again bright and early Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Bye-bye.